Hi. Hi there. It's Elaine Lindsay of Trill Social Media. I'm your host for Business Banter Plus TV. And this is a slight change for us. We're coming to you from Blab. Today I'm with my guest, and I am so excited to welcome Felicia Slattery. So wonderful to have you here.
Hi, thanks so much, Elaine, for having me. You are amazing. You have been tweeting about this like 50 times a day.
Well, that's what we do for our guests on our show, because we absolutely love our guests. We love to do the show because, quite frankly, I'm the second most curious person on the planet.
Oh, who's the first?
Well, we don't know. They're in
Okay.
Texas because everything's bigger in Texas, and I just figured I wouldn't fight with Texas. So I'll just claim to be the second biggest.
That's great.
Anyway, I want to take 2 seconds and just let our viewers know about Felicia, because I'm sure all of you have heard about Felicia, but I want you to get a little bit more of kind of the lowdown. Felicia created the signature speech, which is a trademark, powerful tool that all small business owners ought to have at hand. Now, here's the really cool thing. She's a longtime speaker coach who began her public speaking career at age 7. Okay, 7. Like, think about that, people. I think one other person who started speaking when they were a child. Anyway, she went on to be a competitive speaker, I believe, in high school. And then she was recruited for the most winning collegiate team in anything in the country ever for Bradley University. Like, wow. I'm humbled that you're here. She's also an internationally acclaimed, award-winning speaker and author. She has a bestseller, and I'm just going to find the Amazon #1 bestseller, Kill the Elevator Speech, which I think is a great idea, and 21 Ways to Make More Money Speaking. I am so thrilled to have you here chatting with me, and I think it's going to be really, really exciting. The last thing I'm going to say is that Felicia says she's on a mission to motivate, inspire, and train experts, smart business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and celebrities to create meaningful connections through effective communication and public speaking. That's a big mission.
That's my bio. That's what I'm excited about. I love it. I've made it my whole life's work.
Well, I love the fact that you're so focused. If people were to pop in and out of this for 1 second and only take one thing home, take the fact that you are so focused on what it is you do, and oh my God, you do it so well.
Oh, you're so kind.
I want people to know that I got to watch Felicia in action just before Christmas. Now, I understand you moved last year.
We did.
Yeah, and you were only in your new area for a relatively short time before you took up a hell of a challenge.
I did.
Tell us. Tell the whole world about this. It is so good, and oh my God, you did such an amazing job.
Oh, thank you. Well, short backstory on that. So my career started, my professional career, I was a college professor, and I used to teach communication courses and public speaking. And then I had babies and wanted to be home with my babies. But, if mommy with 2 master's degrees, can she really sit home and do nothing? No. So that's when I kind of started working, and I sort of fell into working with entrepreneurs because of the way that I was marketing myself, and have pretty much gone full force into working with small and home-based business owner folks. And last year we moved from the Chicago area to Knoxville, Tennessee. And here in Knoxville, there are actually a lot of corporate headquarters in the area. And I do a lot of professional speaking, and corporations represent a huge market for me. And so one of the places to reach out to folks who are looking for professional speakers, professional trainers, is it used to be called the American Society of Training and Development. They rebranded last year, so now they're the Association for Talent Development.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yes, so I figured, as I reach out more toward corporate folks and do some of my direct outreach, because they do appreciate the fact that I taught at a college, and they appreciate all of the other credibility pieces that I have and the media that I've done, et cetera, et cetera. And so they get excited about that, and they go, ooh, what does she talk about? Maybe she might be somebody we want to have, right? So I thought, well, before I really blow out my marketing to that group, I want a piece of credibility that says, I belong in this market.
Fit here.
Yeah, I fit here, exactly. And so the local chapter of ATD is the Smoky Mountain chapter, and they're here in East Tennessee. And I went to my first meeting in November, but before I actually went to my first meeting, I saw that they had this December Throwdown challenge that they do every year. And they have these trainers, and they compete for who's going to be the best trainer.
Wow.
And I said, speech competition? I'm in.
Right.
And so then I went to my first meeting, and they mentioned it there, and they said, we already have people, signed up to throw down. And I was like, that's me. And then I went to my second meeting, and my second meeting was the Throwdown. And the topic was engagement. And I thought, well, what am I going to talk about? I talk all the time about how you engage people, but I thought, I wonder what and I only had 10 minutes, which, often I have an hour, 90 minutes, like 10 minutes. Okay, how am I doing engagement in 10 minutes? And so when I teach engagement, I tell folks that if you want to engage people, engage them with all of their senses.
Yeah.
So sight, smell, sound, touch, and taste. Which people may be like, wait, taste? What are you talking about, right? But you could do it if you're live and in person by handing out a little treat. And so I started to think through this, and it was the week before Christmas. And I said, 'twas the week before Christmas. Wait a minute.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. And I wrote a little parody poem against 'twas the night before Christmas, and stayed up half the night to write it, and put this cute little parody together, and wore a Santa hat, and gave out candy canes. That was my little treat that I handed out. And they wanted us to talk about, one of the things that they were going to be voting on for the judgment was there anything learning in there? And so I went and I researched to make sure that I could get the research that said, if you use smell in terms of memory and learning, that helps. If you use taste in memory and learning, that helps. I mean, I found all this research, and I incorporated all this stuff in this little parody thing. And darn good thing I won, because that was hard.
Yeah. So let me stop you there, because you downplayed that way too much. Yeah. Okay. Second time she goes to the meeting, she not only does the Throwdown, she does a parody of something we all know and love. If you celebrate Christmas, 'twas the night before Christmas. And let me tell you, she did it so well. It really was amazing. But you had teaching moments in there. Like, I was just like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And I love anything that gives you deeper information. So using the 5 senses for me was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. I will, if Felicia allows us, we'll put a link on her Business Banter Plus page to her speech, because it's really amazing.
Oh,
and
sure.
What she said quietly was, she won! Okay, yay!
Yay! So now I have that credibility piece. I'm the Throwdown champion for ATD Smoky Mountain. Whee! Yay me!
Well, if that's not you walking your walk, I don't know what on earth is.
Well, you know what? It always bugs me when people are teaching stuff that they don't themselves do, or, maybe they did it 15 years ago or 20 years ago, but they haven't done it recently. So I'm always out there doing the stuff that I teach people how to do. And because stuff changes, and crowds change, and people's tastes change, and interests change. And, public speaking is pretty evergreen in terms of content, but the way that things get delivered, and the way that people receive things, and what's working now in terms of getting people to take action on things, that changes. And it changes every couple of years. And so, if somebody isn't on top of that,
it becomes stale.
Stale and old and not great.
Yeah. And it's, there is, well, I think like me, you're probably an eternal learner.
I am.
And for me, learning is like breathing. I can't survive without oxygen. I can't survive without knowledge either. Mm-hmm. It's just who I am. Yeah. But to that point, let's slow it down here and go, okay, Speaking at 7, what prompted that? How did that happen?
Oh, that was easy. So for my first Holy Communion, I was asked to read at church. And there were hundreds of people in the church that day. And I was this little teeny tiny baby. You know, I was 7 years old, and I was a tiny 7. I was teeny. My mom had my dress, and like both of my kids were way bigger than I was at 7. Like they couldn't even wear they were wearing it at like 4 and 5 years old, you know. So I was this teeny, teeny, tiny little girl. But because my mom used to read to us, my sister and I, from the cradle, I learned to be a good reader. And it was very evident. I mean, you know, kids who were 7, they're not that great of readers to begin with. And so I could read with inflection, and I knew the words because, again, my mom had been reading to me for a very long time. So I knew how to read words. I knew what they sounded like out loud. And so I was, you know, looking back now, I mean, when I was 7, I was like, oh, I was the obvious choice. But I was one of the few obvious choices of kids who could read, you know, at church. And I did it. And I remember, like, I remember I was teeny tiny. So they had like this big step that I had to step on to get behind the, they call it the ambo, the podium lectern thing, you know, at church. Yeah. And I was this little teeny tiny, and I was like, oh, and I remember looking out, and all these people were looking back at me, and I was like, and I read my thing, and everybody listened. They were listening. I was like, oh my God, these people are listening to me. Are you kidding? And I said, Mommy, I want to know more. And she was like, okay. and she had no idea, you know, how to guide me in doing more. But I, you know, very soon found myself doing plays because that was the, you know, easy fit. And I did drama all through grade school. We moved to a new school when I was in 5th grade, and we had auditions for the play, and the kids voted. I don't know why they had kids vote on the roles, but I won Lucy in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So, you know, I've been doing fun things like that really my whole life. In high school, I got serious about it, and I started to compete in speaking. In college, I competed, like you mentioned in my bio there. And so, you know, I've been doing it ever since. Every job I've ever had out of high school, college, and since and beyond involved me standing in front of audience of people doing something, selling something, teaching something, presenting as a paid trainer or paid speaker, whatever. And so I've made it my life's work, and I love it.
And you're really, really good at it.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you.
Oh, it certainly helps. But it seems you like a bit of trial by fire. You moved schools. You dived into a play. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's, you know what? Still, what I've learned, and you bring up a good point, but that's a teachable moment. So whenever people think, well, gosh, I'm moving to a new area, I'm not sure. I gotta go meet a bunch of people first. No, you don't. Just get on a stage, and then they'll all know you. That's all you got to do. That's another reason why I did it. I thought, well, if I don't win, at the very least, I'll have these 25, 30, 50, however many people, you know, showed up that day. I didn't know how many were going to be there. You know, but I'll have at least the people in the room and the members of this organization will know me and know what I can do and know what I'm about on stage. And that will at least start a ball rolling. And of course, I've already been invited to speak several more times just from that one little presentation. So it worked exactly the way I wanted it to. And that's how anybody should get known anywhere for anything. Get on a stage, get in front of people, and then they'll know you. And from there on, now you're active. Now they know your name, they know what you're about, and they can be in touch with you about those things.
That's absolutely brilliant. What a good teachable moment. Because it's true. You have the floor, you have the access. What a great way to get your name out there.
Yeah.
And when you're comfortable with what you do and when you love it, as you obviously do, that comes through. So it makes it easy for people when they're thinking of someone that they need to do a speaking engagement. Well, of course you're going to come to mind.
Yeah, and that's the point of really all marketing, isn't it? Like, be doing the thing that you want people to think of you doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and if you love it and if you do it well, to me that means practice. You have to practice what you do, no matter whatever it is.
Right.
You know, look at sports guys. Look at baseball, football. They don't just go out on the field for the game. They practice and practice and practice before they get good at it. It kind of, you know, I don't know how often you run into people who think they can just roll out of bed one day and, oh, okay, today I'm going to be a whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny because people who are really good at what they do, when you talk to them, you realize that they've put a lot of work into what they do.
Yeah. You know, and I hear people say, oh, I could never do what you do. Sure you could. Anybody can do what I do. All you got to do is practice.
Yep, there you go.
It's really that simple. I mean, that's what I say all the time. Exactly what you said about athletes and, you know, and athletes in particular. I mean, they don't, just like you said, they don't wake up one morning and go, I'm going to be a golfer today.
Yeah.
And go, you know, hit a scratch game. Like, that doesn't happen. So what do they do instead? They work at it and they work at it and they work at it and they work at it. That's what, you know, that's what gets you better at anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as a young teen, I was a figure skater. And the bulk of figure skating is practice. I mean, you go for hours doing a figure eight, and that's all you do.
Yep. And that's how you get good at anything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So from college, did you go right into becoming a professor?
No, I didn't. I graduated college with my bachelor's degree in 1992. And at that point, we were in a recession, not as bad as the one we were in like 2007, 8, 9. But it was pretty bad. And I remember at the time, you know, people saying, well, it's going to be really hard to get a job and so on and so forth. And sure enough, it was really hard to get a job. But I worked in an ad agency for about a year, and it was a small boutique agency. And after that, the woman who owned the business retired. And that was it. Closed the doors. I was like, she's out of a job. And it wasn't like she fired me or anything like that. She just closed the business. And I was not, at 22, 23 years old, I wasn't in any position to be able to say, oh, I can take over your whole company. You know, I had no idea. You know, I barely could do my own job at the time. I mean, I was fine at it. So I thought, well, maybe I'll go back to school and get a graduate degree, because I'd always wanted to teach college. And when I was in college, I had a professor tell me, oh, no, don't do that. Just go get a real job. And I listened to him, which was stupid. But apparently the dude didn't like his job, right? So I went back and I went to the university that was in my hometown, and I was telling this exact story. And two people came running down the hall, because at that place, the walls didn't go all the way to the ceiling, so anybody could hear everything everywhere. And they came around, they were like, you need a job? I was like,
yay!
Yes, I do. And so that's how I got a job working at a university as an enrollment counselor, which basically is sales in university land.
Yeah.
And so working at the school, I got my first master's degree, because schools don't pay very much, but they give you free education. So I took advantage of that, and I got my first master's degree, and then that school let me teach in their program because of my background in public speaking and the fact that I had a master's degree. So I got to teach a public speaking course, and I was hooked. I loved it. I called every school in the Chicago area and said, I want to teach public speaking at your school. And their first question was, great, do you have at least a master's degree in fine arts or communication? And I was like, no, but it's in adult education and training. And they said, well, you need a degree in the subject area. Sorry, goodbye. And so I said, well, that's not going to stop me. So I went back to school. And in the meantime, I had switched jobs, and I was working in sales in another company. And so I went and got a second master's degree at the University of Illinois at Chicago. And that was a very traditional program where I worked full time. I was a teacher's assistant, working on my graduate work. And so I finished my degree, and then UIC and pretty much every other school that I had called in the past, I called them back and said, hey, can I work there now? And they said, do you have a degree? And I said, well, I have a master's degree in this one thing, and I have everything but my thesis done in the other. And they go, that's good enough. Come on in.
Come on down.
So it took me 6 years to finish my thesis, because I was like, they let me teach because I had already had the coursework and I had everything that they wanted me to have, the degree plus the coursework. So, but I did get my thesis, so I do have 2 master's degrees.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something else, and I know you're going to hear even more from Felicia.
Well, that and a quarter probably won't even buy me a phone call anymore, but you know.
yeah, a quarter definitely won't get you a phone call anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, so you've, wow, gone through college. I like the fact that the path always sort of included some marketing and some sales. So you never strayed from really what you wanted to do.
Mm-mm.
And
No.
I think that's key, because a lot of people don't think outside the box and realize that all those pieces, the marketing, the sales, the whatever goes around it, are all relational to what you wanted to do.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So when did you strike out on your own?
What year are we now? 10 years ago next month.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy. Yeah, it was 2006. And I said, you know, at that point I had 2 children, and my second baby, she was born under very traumatic circumstances. We both almost died. We both lived, yay, us. So she's a very happy, healthy 5th grader now. You'd never know she was a preemie. You'd never know by looking at her. She's a monster. She's awesome. Super strong and smart and sweet and everything else. Not that I'm proud of her or anything. But after I came out of that really difficult traumatic birth, I mean, I had PTSD. And it took a year to recover from that. And so after I did, I kind of like looked around and I said, well, why am I still here? Like, why was I given this, you know, the second chance? So many other people died from this thing that I had, and I didn't. So I kind of thought, well, what should I be doing instead? And I thought, well, the first thing I want to do is raise these children that I've been given, instead of driving around to all these different college campuses teaching other college students who could not care less about being in the classroom and learning public speaking and being terrified and the whole thing. And so I decided, all right, well, I want to do that. I think I'm going to be a life coach. That's what I'm going to do, and which is hilarious. So I got life coach training because I thought I didn't know enough, which was funny because all of the communication stuff that I had been teaching was all the life coach training stuff. Yep. And so I stopped the life coach training not too long after I got into the life coach training because I was like, oh, I could teach this already.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I taught a class on interviewing and how to ask questions. I taught classes on interpersonal communication. Every communication course you can imagine I taught, which was perfect training for life coaching. And about, I don't know, 9 months into it, I had a coach say to me, like, she found out that I had this public speaking background and experience. She said, why aren't you teaching public speaking? And I said, well, because everybody had public speaking in high school, and, you know, if they went to college, they had to have it there too. So they don't need that. And she was like, you might want to think twice. And so I started to look around, and honestly, I fell out of the life coach thing because I was active on social media, which at the time was a site called Rise, and Yahoo groups. And people would ask questions, and they'd say, oh, I have to give this speech on blah, 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 and I don't know how to start, or I have to give a speech and I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. And so I would just answer their questions on social media. And suddenly people started coming to me and saying, well, how do you do that? And I want to know more. And would you coach me on that? And, sure. Okay. And that, I mean, so I literally, that's how I did it. And then I started getting invited to speak, like how, because I was speaking. They're like, how are you doing that? I'll show you how. And so I started doing teleseminars from that, and then I wrote my first ebook from there, and then business just grew from that, very organically.
Yeah, well, and that's often the very best you can get. So in terms of public speaking, I know there's different types of speaking. You know, TED. What do you think of TED and that format, and do you teach people how to do TED Talks?
TED is an interesting thing because for speakers, especially people who want to get known, having their picture taken and having video of themselves on that black stage with nothing on it except for the big red letters, that's a big deal. Yeah. And it carries a lot of credibility. personally don't know if I would want to do that, only because TED themselves is a multinational organization and they are $1 million, if not $1 billion business. And they have built their entire business model around a free product that they get off of the backs of people who are experts, who work very, very hard. And those people get nothing except their picture and the video and be able to say, I gave a TED Talk. I'm completely out of integrity with that, because I think that people should be paid for their expertise, especially if someone is making money from that expertise. Now, it's one thing if someone is using speaking as a tool to market themselves. Yes, right. Absolutely go and speak for free. That's this whole signature speech model that I developed and created and still teach all the time. I love that as a model. If you know going in, this is what I'm doing. Yes, I'm doing TED as a way to market myself. That would be fantastic. From the speaker side, I think that's an amazing tool. And if you can get it, wonderful. For myself, I just have a problem with an organization taking advantage. It's like saying, you know what, we'll give you exposure in exchange for your brilliance. And by the way, you can't give this speech anywhere else. And you can't use this speech for anything else. Okay. You know, to me, that's just not cool. I don't know. I mean, thank you. So do you feel the same way?
Yes, and I love the fact that, and it's exactly why I asked you. I was debating about this off and on, for the past few weeks, because I've been waiting to have you on the show for a while, and I thought, I know that Felicia's going to give me her honest answer, and thank you. That could not have been a better answer. Here, I thought I was being a little weird, because the one thing that bothered me was that weird nothing gained in terms of either side. Normally there's some kind of trade-off.
Right, like when you speak for free, most of the time you can sell something from the stage, right, or you can at the very least get the names of everybody in the audience to get on your email list. You can't do any of those things at TED, nothing. So what you get in exchange is your picture in front of the big red letters and your video.
Yeah.
And that's it. Now, I make no mistake, if someone wants to be recognized as it having spoken on TED expert, and they want to use the experience for that, especially the TEDx events. The TEDx events don't make that much money. Really they make the money that they need to pay for the venue and the marketing. They're not charging a ton of money for the tickets. So the TEDx is kind of a little bit of a different experience, I think, than the major TED, which is the main brand. So going into it, being aware that this is the way this organization has grown itself off the backs of people who are working really hard, and not really giving them much the equity of value is not the same. Then that's all more power to you. I mean, and I can prepare people for a TED Talk, because TED's all about, like, can you be innovative? Can you deliver your presentation in a very short amount of time? Some of the TEDx ones, somewhere between 19 and 21 minutes, is the presentation length. I know how to prepare people for that exact amount of time, with a timer, reliably, every single time. I mean, I can prepare people easily for that. I can help write a speech for that very easily. It's just not something that I don't think at this point in my career I'm ready to do. Now, in like 3 years or 5 years, the big, huge TED organization calls me and says, will you give a talk? I may eat my hat and go, but, right now, I don't know about that. I'm not sure it's a great thing. So anyway, there's my thoughts.
No, it's really a refreshing look, because you're the only person that's ever sort of seen that side of it, as far as I know, because I've talked to a lot of people. I know actually a master speaking coach who teaches people how to speak for TED, because it is a very different format. It's totally different from how you would speak publicly. And we have, with things like Toastmasters and keynote groups, and there's lots of different modalities in how people speak. And I just found it really interesting that this corporation became such a huge entity. And I thought, okay, well, that just seems really bizarre to me. So I'm glad there's somebody else in that camp. It's not just me.
Well, you know, we're business people, right? I mean, like, we're looking for, like, what's the business point of it?
Absolutely.
And, you know, and I won't beat the horse, but I mean, people, I don't even know if they give a free ticket to the people who go to the event. I think they have to actually pay to get into the TED event as a speaker. And then they've got to pay their way. I mean, it's like, come on.
Most speakers. Yeah. And for me, I think if you have rules, I'm a very literal person. Mm-hmm. So if you have rules, and if the speak is supposed to be 18 minutes or you know, 18 to 21 minutes, then it should be that way across the board.
Yes.
But it's not. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay.
Yes. Why do the rules not apply to that person? And why do they apply to everybody? So, but you know, you said something that I want to just piggyback on. Some people have chosen to niche and say, well, I'll coach you with keynote speaking. I'll coach you in your TED Talk. I'll coach you in your whatever, right? The truth is, and this is from my heart, having been a public speaking instructor for more than 20 years now, speaking is speaking is speaking. When you know the rules, you know the audience, and you know the purpose, that's all you need. And so someone who can coach, I don't know if somebody, I mean, I don't know your master coach friend, you know, somebody who can coach a TED speaker may not necessarily be able to coach a keynote speaker, because if that's all they've learned and all they've focused on. But for someone who comes from a background like I come from, a very solid, you know, research academic background and practiced background, where I have given every kind of speech you can imagine. I mean, I gave a keynote speech. They gave me 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and they said, do a keynote speech in 7 minutes. I had to tell my cancer story in 7 minutes. Are you kidding me? Okay. And I did, and then the organization that I did it for, it was a cancer research organization. They raised $12,000 immediately after I gave my keynote.
Wow.
So I mean, and so like 7 minutes, and up to 90. I've done 4-hour, you know, workshops. I mean, multiple day workshops, of course, but like you know, in one sitting, a 90-minute, a 2-hour presentation. I mean, any kind of presentation you can imagine, I've delivered them myself and have coached my clients to do it. So it really doesn't matter what the modality is if you understand those 3 things.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to clarify, this person, could teach anyone very, very good at what they do, and a good speaker. And something we found that I'm wondering if you've ever run into this, you know, because you teach, but you also speak. You said it about business. I so love that, because half the time there's such an issue I find with people that they don't really walk their walk. I went to an event to learn about TED and what was required for the speaking. And within the day, we watched and critiqued 3 or 4 different TED Talks. Well, one of them is someone who teaches how to do a TED Talk. And it was a big thing. And I thought, this is going to be great. It is, honest to God, the worst speech I've seen since grade 2, when somebody ran off crying.
Oh, no.
We were, and it was really bizarre to watch everybody, because everybody was going, okay. I thought this was a, you know, and you know, there's that old adage, you know, those who can do, those who can't teach, and those who can't teach consult, or whatever it is.
Right.
Having been in all those categories, I find it much more true to form that those who can teach can do so because they're really good at what it is they're offering.
Yes. And, you know, when I get up to speak, particularly when there's video, and I know it's going to be showed later, I feel that pressure. Like, okay, I tell people that I teach this. I can't suck today.
Yeah.
Like, you know, everybody has a bad day. Everybody has an off day with what they do sometimes. But if it's in my line of work, I'm on stage in front of a lot of people. Like, you know, it's not like, well, I'm an email marketer and I sent a bad email that didn't get a lot of opens that day. Well, that's all right. There's another email going out tomorrow. Like, nope, there's video of Felicia sucking.
And there's no degree of separation.
No.
It's like, this is what I do. I'm not just talking about something else that
right.
you find out. I'm actually, this is it.
Yeah. So, I tend to be my own worst critic, as is true to form, I think. And I remember one day I did give, some of my close friends who had seen me speak before, they were like, yeah, that really wasn't your best. But interestingly, at that same event, the same thing, people who had never seen me before, I had a couple people come over and say, you remind me of, one guy said, you remind me of Jim Rohn.
Wow.
You speak like him. And I was like, wow, this was a bad day.
Yeah, wow.
So, and I wrote a blog post about it because I was like, it was so bad. And the event planner came on and he was like, if you hadn't written this blog post, it never would have crossed my mind that you thought you did not a great job.
Oh, wow.
So, even, I think the point is for people who are teaching something, even when they're not great, you still want to see some level of like, that didn't sound horrible. Yeah, some level of expert, like something there, maybe they tripped over something or maybe there's a, and not like a figurative trip, not necessarily a literal trip.
Yeah.
Although I've seen one of my clients, she literally tripped on her way in the beginning in her intro of her first ever keynote speech. She was like, got that out of the way.
Oh, well, hey, yeah, done. Okay, move on.
So there was my mistake. The rest will be perfect from now out.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, that's one way to get it out of the way for sure.
I know. And that's something else. You should be able to laugh at yourself, right? If we're not able to laugh at ourselves, then, that's just not good
I think that's true. Yeah, that's true. No matter what you do, if you talk to pretty much anybody who's really good in their business, they're able to look at themselves and have a good chuckle because nobody's perfect. It would be so boring if we were all perfect. Like, snooze. I couldn't live like that. I think that would be horrible.
No.
Okay, so question. So, what was your, single most difficult decision in the past 5 years in business?
To come back to work after I had cancer. Yeah. I was diagnosed with lung cancer. It took about 6 to 9 months for the diagnosis to actually be official, because they kept saying, well, you have no risk factors for that. You're too young for that. You've never smoked a day in your life. You've never been around asbestos or radon. It's not cancer. We'll figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Well, sure enough, it was lung cancer. And so I had a lot of quiet time in those 3 months after they removed a part of my lung when I couldn't speak at all. I could not speak a sentence without coughing because what was happening is my brain was looking for that part of my lung that had been removed, and the nerve endings weren't attached to where it was supposed to be attached to. My brain would say, "Oh, it's not there. We probably can't breathe." Cough. Every few words, about every breath, right? Because you breathe every few words. So I would talk a couple of words and talk a few words. And that was just in conversation. Now imagine, the extra energy would have taken to be on stage. Yeah. And so first I kept saying to the doctors, are you sure I'm going to be able to talk again? Because if not, I need to find a new line of work. And they said, no, it'll be fine. And sure enough, darn it, if cardio work didn't get it better. Mm-hmm. Go back to the gym. Oh, okay. That fixes everything. Stupid gym. So anyway, doing a lot of cardiovascular work kind of trained my brain and, time that, nope, we can still breathe and it's all good. So I did that, but I had, I had to come to Jesus talk with Jesus, like, okay, you struck me down with this. If you don't want me to be talking, what do you want me to be doing instead?
Yeah.
And it really wasn't my decision so much as it was an answer to that prayer, because the morning after that, I prayed, and I don't know how your people feel about this or not, but call it divine intervention, call it the universe. I call it praying to God. But I got an email, and the only thing I had my phone. That was I didn't turn my computer on for 3 months, but I had my phone, and I would check my email through my phone, and I got an email from one of those job career sites.
Oh.
That apparently, like in the early days, and anybody who's ever started a business and try to run a business on your own, you have those dark days where you go, oh, for God's sakes, I'm just going to chuck it all and get a job, right? Well, I must have done that at some point and totally forgot that I had done it. I had never been hearing, with maybe Monster or Career Builder, one of those, right? And so I got this email, and it said, such and so, is interested in you. And I was like, and I thought, what is that? So I went on my phone, I went to the thing, and I read the description of the job. And it was exactly word for word what I do in my business every single day. And I was like, okay, all right, wait. Do you want me to get a job? Or do you want me to just keep doing the thing? So I went through the process, again, still on my phone. Oh, I did open my computer. I opened my computer because you needed a resume. And I was like, I haven't done a resume in 15 years. So I did a resume, and I submitted it. And I thought, all right, I am the exact match for this job. Every word on this resume is an exact fit. And so so two things. So I sent a note, and I said, I would like to apply. And they said, based on your experience, we'd like you to apply. So I applied, never heard anything again. And I thought, okay, I'll keep doing it on my own.
It was just confirmation that what you do is what you're meant to do.
Yeah. So, I think God answers your prayers if you're paying attention and you listen. And sometimes you get hit over the head by a 2x4.
Yeah. or something.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that was difficult just in terms of like, okay, because I could very easily go back and teach college again. I did it for over a decade, easily go back and do that. And, have the ease and security, that comes from that every month I know I'm going to get the check and then exactly what it's going to be. We have ups and downs, and depending on where you are in your business, it might be down here or they might be up here, but wherever they are, it's still...
And it still comes and goes.
Yep, it's a good month. It's not a good month. It's a good month. It's not a good month, So anyway, luckily I've had more up here, than down here. But it took a while to get those great months. And,
Well, it's interesting to me. I didn't want to bring up the C word because I did know that, but I left that up to you. And I am so thrilled that you are the champion, and having God on your side certainly helps. Mm-hmm. Were you at a place in your life at that point where, God's way of telling you, you know what, you need a little bit of a break?
I don't know. Honestly, I still to this day am not sure, because people say, well, what did you learn from it? And honestly, I've kept a gratitude journal for decades, all kind of off and on, more on than off though. So I'm always grateful. I try to be mindful, always in relationships. I teach, communication and public speaking is essentially relationship building from the stage. Yeah. That's my approach to it. That's how I teach it. And so I have long focused on relationships. It's not like I was taking my husband for granted or my kids or, the people in my life for granted. It wasn't like any, I didn't have anything that was like dysfunctional that I could totally change my whole life.
No.
So, I still am not sure. It's only 3 years since I've had that and been through that. So maybe there's, maybe in another few years I'll look back and go, oh, now I know why. Yeah. But right now I'm still not so sure. Maybe there's an organization that'll come after me and say, hey, we saw your story and we would love you to be our spokesperson. And, now we raise millions of dollars to help, solve non-smoking related lung cancer. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Now that would be a cool thing, right? Yeah. But right now, the organization that I spoke at and I gave my keynote for was for that specific thing, my 7-minute keynote. But, we didn't raise, it was a small room, it was a small event. It wasn't like a huge telethon kind of a thing. So we didn't raise millions.
Nothing to sneeze at.
No, nothing to sneeze at all. Mm-mm. So, so I don't know what that's going to look like. Maybe it'll be, I end up telling my story somewhere and people say you inspired me, and, maybe that's all.
Yeah.
I know that I've not worked with, but I've spoken to a few people and who've been diagnosed or in the early stages of diagnosis, and, just asked for my guidance or wisdom, or, my 2020 hindsight, what did you learn, kind of a thing. And, just kind of shared with them, a bit about what I went through, and trying to reassure them. And it's a fine line, because I can't say, I know you're going to be fine, because, lung cancer is something that most people don't recover from.
Yeah. And
I've seen a lot of people that I know not make it to the 5-year mark where they say, you've made it for 5 years, you're good to go. So, I'm careful about the words I choose when I try to encourage folks.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I come from a quite religious family. My parents were very religious, and my sister was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma.
Oh, no.
And they ended up taking a big piece of the side of her head in 1997. And my sister was on every prayer wheel known to man. My parents are Catholic, and everybody prayed. And my sister has to take her oxygen with her, but goes to the gym 3 times a week and is having the time of her life.
God bless her. So she's all these years later.
And she's out of, there were, I think, in total about 70 of them in various stages when she went through a year's chemotherapy. And my sister's the only one still here. So God has a purpose for people. And whether it's God, or whether it's the universe, or whatever you believe. And you, my viewer, know that I have some, some odd leanings and understandings of spirit and universe. And I just really believe that, if you put good stuff out there, if you're grateful for everything you have, and like you, I started with, what was it, Sarah von Ben Brednak or something a million years ago.
Sarah von Brednak, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. And like you, I'm kind of off and on, but every day I am grateful for every little thing. And I think that's what helps us get by. And we're blessed to be able to do what we enjoy doing. I mean,
indeed,
how lucky we have, children and hubbies and families we love. And I think that's amazing. Having someone who loves you, and someone that you love, and your fur kids and all of that, I think is what makes it worthwhile.
And doing the work that you love to do, that you feel like you were here to put, like that you were here to do. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's amazing.
Absolutely.
I couldn't be more blessed.
And well, now there's a wonderful note to come to our wrap up. What I always ask my guests, first of all, so I have to say thank you. This has been a phenomenal interview. I love talking with you. I could probably talk with you for hours and hours and hours and never let you go. What I like to do when we sort of wrap up an interview, I like my guests to leave the audience with one little tidbit or something that they can implement in their lives, either business or personal or both, that you find helps you get through a part of your day, or some little tip that you use. Well,
I think since you started off the interview talking about being, focused, and how it's, clear that I've spent my whole life doing this one thing, I think no matter what it is that you want, whether it's a business or a personal thing, if you keep your eyes on the prize and you say, this is what I want, and don't let anything stop you, and then take a step every single day to get there, you'll get there. So good. That's so good. Yeah. Keep your eyes on the prize is such a good adage, and you are living proof of that, because your focus is strong. You are so good at what you do. And again, I say thank you. I'm going to end the interview here. We'll have links for Felicia, as we do, on the page on Business Banter Plus. And if she allows us, we'll have the link to her amazing winning speak from the challenge just prior to Christmas.
Thank you very much. Our viewers are saying thank you, Sophia. I appreciate that you loved it. I did too. I think I'm the luckiest person in the world to get to do this because I get to talk to amazing people. And it's so much fun. And
Well, thank you so much for having me, and you're a great interviewer. I really, I'm going to, props for you, yay.
Oh, thank you. And props for you. Oh,
I enjoyed it.
Thank you to everyone else who's saying thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
Make your day matter, people. I'm Elaine Lindsay of True Social Media, and I'm your host for Business Banter Plus TV. Join me next time when we have some really interesting guests like Felicia coming your way. Anything and everything, that's business banter. Thanks a lot. Business Banter Plus TV is sponsored by True Social Media, TTLO Inc., Take the Lid Off, and the Start Something Show.